Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing just great. Um, Welcome to MCOM 202. And today we are going to talk about uh, typography and design. Um, as we discussed many a times, that design of a newspaper is very much important. And same is the case with typography, because without design and typography, um, sub-editing is incomplete. So let's discuss design and typography. So this module is of two parts. So in today's lecture, we'll discuss part one, and in part two, we'll discuss historical background and other perspective on typography and design. So today it's just a slight introduction to typography and design. So let's discuss it. I hope you can all see this PowerPoint presentation on your screens. So let's start with our today's lecture. So first we need to understand what typography is. Uh, um, Typography is basically is the way text is presented in any publication. Once the subject of typography was left to printers only, because they had to deal with typography, and journalists had to only write in the newspapers, and sub-editor had to write in the newspapers. But with the passage of time, with the inception of television and computers and the softwares, we have a changed situation right now. Now, editors should also learn about the basics of typography. So because of television and video and other distractions, we all live in a visual age. And we have a lot of other distractions like social media, and every single day we read a lot of text on our mobile phones, on our iPads, handheld devices, on our television screens. So visually, our readers are, we need to understand this thing, that visually our readers are more sophisticated compared to the readers in the past. So now, every single day, a common person, through his or her mobile phone or handheld devices, they see a variety of typography on their mobile screens. And they are unwilling to spend time with their publication they find difficult to read. Now, this is very interesting thing to understand, that the way you write something on in your publication, or the way it is presented online on your mobile devices, that has to do a lot with the people's attention span. So this is very much important to understand. So most recently, computerized production has meant that responsibility for the publication's look has been passed to sub-editors and designers. So typography has always been the foundation stone of publication design, because a type of text or the type of font that decides the personality of a newspaper. So sub-editors must know everything about it, because it affects our readers. It affects their attention span. It affects their liking or disliking. It also affects that how much time they are going to spend on our newspaper. So it actually influences our legibility. All right. Um, as a sub-editor, they need to appreciate how typography, the study, and the use of typeface affects legibility and readability. Typeface or typography, it's one and the same thing. Typeface are the fonts. Typography is the type of fonts, or the way we write in the newspaper, or the way we write for our publication. As you see in this picture, there are three different types of typography. There are something written in bold, then in a larger font, then there's something written in uppercase and lowercase style in a smaller font, but it's bold. Then something is written in a very smaller text compared to these two texts. I'm talking about these two texts here. At the top, you have seen this text. It is written in a different way. And this text down here, it is written in a different way. And rest of the body type or the body text, that is written in a different font or a different typography. So a publication choice of typeface directly influence how easily people read a publication, known as legibility. So type also influence the ease with which people find their way around a publication and how enjoyable they find reading it. It's known as readability. So you need to know that your publication should have legibility and readability. So some of the expert may argue that sub-editors don't need to become familiar with typography because computerized production has seen widespread introduction of rigid page templates, etc., etc., and we have technologies and that can take care of everything, etc., etc. We can have many kind of justification for that. Pagination system can lock in typeset specification and the sub-editor may have no control over them. This is simplistic. Subs are in the communication business and good subs will learn to appreciate the beauty and power of typography. That means obviously your softwares and your computers can take care of typography. They can increase or decrease the size of your typeface. They can give you variety of typefaces, variety of typography. But in order to be more creative, you need to appreciate the beauty and the power of the typography. So in order to be a good sub-editor, you need to understand typography, and especially if they get the opportunity to design pages from scratch. So let's talk about the measurement of a type. Type is measured in points. Two measurement systems operate around the world. The American use throughout much of the English-speaking world and the European world. The difference between them is minimal. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK use the American system, though Australia and New Zealand have adopted it slightly. So typography has its own language. Figure on the next slide shows the element that makes a piece of a type. So let's look at the figure. So this is a piece of a type. If you see this word expel, and here you have seen this is the baseline. Right here, you can see this line. This is called the baseline of a typeface. All right. So the round shapes of the types, they are called bowl or counter. And these edges, if you see at the top of L, they are called serifs as well. And this line is ascender at the top. All right. And then you have a descender right here. So basically, this is a diagram of a word in 72 points times Roman, showing the terms that describe a piece of type. So there are different pieces in a type. So all these edges, they are serifs. Either they are serifs or they are sans serif, these edges. So fonts with such kind of edges, they are called serifs. So what does that mean? We'll talk about it in a minute, that how they increase legibility and how they increase the ease line. So let's first learn about the slug line. So in hot metal days, when molten lead was poured into molds to make the reversed characters, each piece of type was set on a base of lead known as slug. All right. Most publications still use the term slug to label a story. We give it a slug line. All right. So that's why probably you have read in 201 and 101 that what does slug line means. So this slug line actually came from that time. So in hot metal days, this label or name was typed at the top of every take of a story to identify it. If a reporter was writing a story about a robbery, he or she would slug that story robbery 1, robbery 2, and so on. If there are 3 stories about robbery, then robbery 3. So this enables several linotype operators to work on various sections of the story when close to deadline. So what is the point system? For simplicity's sake, most people say that there are 72 points to the inches. Actually, 72 points makes 0.996264 of an inch. It's not actually a complete inch. So the metric system, centimeters and kilograms, replaced the imperial system, inches and pounds, a generation ago, but many people still link points with inches. So an inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. So this is very important to understand. Uh, point size is measured from top of the base and contains the letter to the bottom. This means that the printed image of a 72-point capital letter is slightly less than an inch because of the shoulder, the extra distance from the letter to the top of the base, and lowercase 72 points letter without an ascender or descender are significantly smaller than capital letters, just over a centimeter. In other words, the point size of a letter has relatively little to do with its actual print size. So what does that mean? It's too much, I guess. You need to understand that whatever size you have selected in your software, that will be different in printing size. All right. So this is another example. So type in a newspaper context. In the editorial section of the newspaper, type is used for body text, captions, presets, story summaries, breakout quotes, and headlines, known as display type. Traditionally, body text and caption came in sizes from 5 points through to 10 points in 1 point centimeter, through 4.5 points and 12 points were also used in previous times. So these types of sizes had made like Ruby, Perl, and Minions. In fact, typography has its own distinct lexicon. Now we simply use the number, for example, 7 points, 8 points, 10 points, 12 points. So body text in any book or in any newspaper set in 11-point New Century School book or 15-point Leading or 10-point New Times Romans, that won't be actually 15-point in printing. So headlines were traditionally set in 14 points and 18 points, and then 6-point increments up to the 60 points. So occasionally 12 point was used as a headline for fillers and briefs. So after 60-point headlines increased by 12 point, that is 72 points or 84 points and so on. So tabloid papers often run headlines in 84 points or 96 points, and some have been known to go up to 180 points. What does that mean? This is too much information with a lot of points. In simple words, your headlines, they come in a different font. Your body text, that comes in a different font. If you are writing for Dawn newspaper, your headline font will be probably 14 to 18 points. But if you are writing for any evening newspaper or any tabloid, your headline could increase from 72 point to 84 point or 180 point as well, because mostly headlines in such kind of newspaper are barking headlines. So this is a style. So let's say if you are using this headline, this type of headline in Dawn newspaper, so probably it is not advisable for a paper like Dawn newspaper. But if you are doing it for or SAW for any evening newspaper, okay, fine, it will work. So type in a newspaper context. So with modern typesetting technology, it is possible to have headlines of any size. Some desktop publishing softwares such as Quark Express offer type size from 1 point through to 999 point. Obviously, you are not going to use 999 point because it's too much. Obviously, the larger the type, the more space it will occupy. So publisher and designers strike a balance between economics striving to fit as much into available number of pages and legibility, making the product easy to read. So like 25 years ago, most Australian newspapers set their body text in 7 points for news and went as small as 5 points for sports results. Again, on every page of the newspaper, size of the text is entirely different. So today this is considered too small, especially for the people with poor or failing eyesight. Most Australian and UK newspapers set their body type between 8 to 9.5, and in Pakistan, it's around 10. So some American papers have increased the body text to 9.8 with another half a point of leading to accommodate older reader. So more on reading and leading later. So in order to understand typeface, we need to understand the Xheight. What is the Xheight? So if you see this word A right here in your PowerPoint presentation, so in headline, you'll have noted that characters vary in size. Some such as M and W are wide, other like I and L are slim. Obviously, choice of word matters when writing a headline. Most letters have relatively consistent bold size because type and designed to be aesthetically pleasing as well as functional. The X height is the height of the character, but has come to mean the height of the text without the ascender or the descender. In any font that is an individual member of the type family or style letter of the same point size have the same X height. But the letter of one font may look very different compared with the letters of the same size in another font. Like writing an A in Kilbury will have a different X height, while when you write A in New Times Roman, that will have a different X height. So if you see the next figure, that shows the overall the same type size of 24 points, but they come from different type families with different design objectives and have different X heights. Thus, they have different shapes. If you see, all these letter A, they are coming from different type families. All right. And similarly, their X height is different. So you need to understand these things as well. So X height influences the ease as well. The X height influences the ease with which people read a publication and the size in which body text is set. So newspaper have tend to choose types with large X heights. So as an editor, you must be knowing that with large X heights, you need to use such kind of typefaces. So these typefaces have correspondingly small ascenders and descenders because the larger the X height, the smaller the available space for the ascender and descenders in a given point size. So typeface with the large X height are said to be big on the body. So newspaper prefer them because their larger bows are less likely to fill with ink and blot out some characters on poor quality papers such as newsprints. So some mature age readers will remember how the bows of the letters on our old manual typewriter used to get cacked with dirt and ink. So you could argue that modern newspaper use better quality newsprint compared with, say, a generation ago. But it is still not high quality paper because the newspapers, the paper newsprints, they are of low quality compared to the paper you use at your home for writing purposes. Sizes and X heights of the types. The other reason is economic. You can get away with using smaller size types if it has a larger X height. Type with larger X height looks larger than the same size types with the small X height. For example, 8-point Century will be just as easy to read as 9.5 Podoni, which has a smaller X height and relatively long ascenders and descenders. This means that you can generally get more words into the same space depending on the design of the type. Of the literally hundreds of thousands of typefaces available, only a handful are used regularly for newspaper production. The deputy managing editor of the graphics at US Today, Ford Huffman, is quoted as recommending these typefaces for newspaper in an article for Design, the Journal of the Society of the News Design. And what he basically said that out of hundreds and thousands of typefaces, that there are only limited number of typefaces you can use for newspaper, and there are possibility that you are using serifs or the sans serif typefaces. So what is the difference between serifs or the sans serifs? So if you see this text, this is written in sans serif font and serif font. So several other factors influence legibility and readability, and that sans serif or serif is one of them. So serifs are the smaller extra bits on the end of the letters. Sans types, sans comes from the French word, means without, generally has a simpler design. So if you see, this text is sans serif, it is without these extra bits. So the two phrases below, next slide, show the difference between 24-point serif and the sans serif type. Again, if you see here, this is serif and this is sans serif. In serif, you have these extra bits, and in sans serif, you don't have these extra bits. So that's it. That's part one. So in part two, we'll discuss historical background of these fonts and font types. So till then, take care. Bye bye. Have fun.